Feeling stuck in a cycle you can't seem to break, whether it's repeating the same unhealthy habits, staying in draining relationships, or battling self-doubt that just won't let go, can feel like being trapped in a maze with no way out. But what if the key to breaking free has been within you all along? Centuries ago, Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That simple yet profound idea is at the heart of Stoicism, and it's exactly what we're diving into today. This isn't just philosophy, it's a practical toolkit for reclaiming your life. Together, we'll explore how cognitive reframing can shift your perspective, how emotional detachment can free you from toxic patterns, and how focusing on what's truly within your control can empower you to take back your agency. If you're ready to step out of the cycle and into a life of clarity and purpose, let's begin. Toxic cycles, those patterns of negative thoughts, destructive behaviors, or recurring conflicts, can feel like an endless loop, trapping us in frustration and despair. But what if I told you that Stoicism offers a powerful lens to not only understand these cycles, but to break free from them? Stoic philosophy teaches us that these cycles aren't rooted in the events themselves, but in how we perceive and react to them. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things." In other words, the external world doesn't create our suffering. It's our internal responses to it that keep us stuck. Think about it this way: when something upsetting happens, a rude comment, a missed opportunity, or a personal failure, it's not the event itself that holds power over you. It's the meaning you assign to it. Do you interpret it as a personal attack, a sign of inadequacy, or proof that the world is against you? These judgments, often automatic and deeply ingrained, are what fuel the cycle. Stoicism invites us to step back and examine these reactions, to see them not as inevitable truths, but as choices we can reassess and change. Let's take a moment to reflect. Can you think of a cycle you feel trapped in? Maybe it's a habit of overthinking, a tendency to lash out in anger, or a pattern of self-doubt that holds you back. How do you typically respond when this cycle repeats? Do you feel powerless, or do you find yourself reacting in ways that only reinforce the pattern? By identifying these moments, you're already taking the first step toward breaking free. Stoicism reminds us that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. And that's where your power lies. Here's the next section of the script, following your outline and guidelines. One of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers for breaking free from toxic cycles is the dichotomy of control. At its core, this principle teaches us to focus only on what's within our power, our thoughts, our actions, and how we choose to respond to the world around us. Everything else, other people's opinions, outcomes, or external events, is outside our control. And here's the key: trying to control what's beyond us is not only futile, but it's also a recipe for frustration and exhaustion. The ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca put it this way: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that for a moment. How much of our stress comes from worrying about things we can't change? Whether it's a toxic coworker's behavior, a boss's unfair criticism, or even the unpredictable twists of life, we often expend so much energy trying to control the uncontrollable. But what if we redirected that energy toward what we can influence, our own mindset and actions? Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're in a toxic work environment. Maybe there's gossip, micromanagement, or a lack of support. These are external factors, and while they're frustrating, they're also beyond your control. What's within your control, though, is how you respond. You can choose not to engage in the negativity. You can focus on doing your best work, regardless of the chaos around you. You can even decide whether this environment aligns with your values and take steps to change it if possible. By shifting your focus inward, you reclaim your power and break the cycle of toxicity. So here's a question to reflect on. What external factors are you allowing to control your peace of mind? Is it someone else's opinion, a situation you can't change, or an outcome you're desperately trying to force? Recognizing what's truly within your control is the first step toward breaking free from these cycles and finding a sense of calm, even in the storm. This passage introduces the dichotomy of control clearly, provides a practical example, and ends with a reflective question, all while maintaining a conversational yet authoritative tone. It avoids repetitive phrasing and keeps the narrative engaging and accessible. Stoicism teaches us that the way we perceive the world shapes our reality. It's not the events themselves that define us, but how we choose to interpret them. This idea is at the heart of cognitive reframing, a powerful Stoic practice that transforms obstacles into opportunities. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the challenges we face aren't roadblocks, they're the very paths to our growth. Let's take a modern example, a breakup. At first glance, it might feel like a failure, a loss, or even a personal rejection. But through the lens of Stoicism, it becomes something entirely different. What if, instead of dwelling on the pain, you saw it as a chance to rediscover yourself? To focus on your own goals, passions, and strengths. Suddenly, what seemed like an ending becomes a doorway to new beginnings. This shift in perspective doesn't erase the difficulty, but it empowers you to move forward with purpose and resilience. So, how can you apply this to your own life? Think about a challenge you're facing right now. Maybe it's a setback at work, a strained relationship, or even a personal goal that feels out of reach. Now ask yourself, how can I reframe this situation? How can I see it not as a stumbling block but as a stepping stone? By redefining the narrative, you take control of your response, and that's where true growth begins. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom. It's not about avoiding hardship, but about learning to embrace it as a teacher. When you start to see challenges as opportunities, you unlock a deeper sense of strength and clarity. And that's how you break free from toxic cycles, one reframed thought at a time. One of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers is the ability to observe our emotions without letting them take the wheel. Think about it. How often do we react impulsively, only to regret it later? The Stoics believed that emotions themselves aren't the problem, it's how we respond to them. As Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This idea is at the heart of emotional detachment, a practice that allows us to step back and see our feelings for what they truly are, passing states, not permanent truth. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine someone says something that really upsets you, a snide comment, a harsh criticism, or even an unfair accusation. In that moment, your first instinct might be to lash out, defend yourself, or sink into frustration. But what if, instead of reacting immediately, you paused? That simple pause creates space. It's like hitting the reset button on your emotions, giving you a chance to respond rather than react. In that space, you can ask yourself, is this comment really about me, or is it a reflection of the other person's struggles? Is my emotional reaction helping me, or is it clouding my judgment? This is where Stoic detachment shines. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about acknowledging them without letting them dictate your actions. By observing your emotions from a distance, you regain control. You can choose to respond with clarity and purpose rather than being swept away by the heat of the moment. So, here's a question to reflect on. What emotion tends to take control of you in challenging situations? Is it anger, frustration, or perhaps anxiety? And more importantly, how can you practice this kind of detachment the next time that emotion arises? The goal isn't to eliminate your feelings, it's to understand them, so they no longer hold power over you. This is how we break free from toxic cycles and move toward a calmer, more intentional way of living. One of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers for breaking free from toxic cycles is its emphasis on presence, living fully in the moment. It's easy to get trapped in the weight of past regrets or paralyzed by future anxieties, but Stoics like Seneca remind us that time is fleeting. He once wrote, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short by wasting time." This isn't just a poetic observation, it's a call to action. When we dwell on what's already happened or obsess over what might come, we rob ourselves of the only thing we truly have, the present. Think about it. How often do you find yourself replaying a mistake from weeks or even years ago, letting it dictate how you feel today? Or maybe you're so fixated on a future outcome like achieving a big goal or avoiding a potential failure that you feel stuck, unable to take the first step. The Stoic approach flips this script. By focusing on the here and now, you reclaim your power to act. Here's a practical way to apply this. Instead of staring at a mountain of long-term goals and feeling overwhelmed, break it down. What's one small, actionable step you can take today? Maybe it's writing that first paragraph of a project you've been putting off, or having a 5-minute conversation to mend a strained relationship. These small actions might seem insignificant in the grand scheme, but they're the building blocks of change. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you can do today, right now even, to break free from a cycle you feel stuck in? It doesn't have to be monumental. In fact, it's better if it isn't. The goal is to start where you are with what you have and trust that these small, intentional steps will lead you forward. The present moment is your point of power. Use it. Life is full of challenges, but Stoicism teaches us that these obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're opportunities. According to Marcus Aurelius, one of the most renowned Stoic philosophers, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very things that seem to hold us back can actually propel us forward if we choose to see them through the right lens. Hardship isn't just something to endure, it's a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Think about a time when you faced a setback. Maybe you lost a job, experienced a failure, or went through a personal crisis. In that moment, it might have felt like the world was against you. But what if, instead of seeing it as a defeat, you viewed it as a training ground? Stoicism encourages us to reframe our struggles as opportunities to practice virtues like patience, determination, and adaptability. For example, if you've ever been in a situation where things didn't go as planned, you likely had to dig deep to find the strength to keep going. That process, as difficult as it was, probably taught you something about your own resilience. Let's say you've been working toward a goal and suddenly an unexpected obstacle arises. Instead of letting frustration take over, you could ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this challenge to become better prepared for future hurdles? By shifting your perspective, you transform adversity into a tool for personal growth. This is the essence of Stoic resilience. It's not about avoiding difficulty, but about embracing it as a teacher. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can you view your current struggles as training grounds for resilience? What strengths or skills might you develop by leaning into the challenges you're facing right now? Remember, every obstacle is an invitation to grow, and every challenge is a chance to build the kind of inner strength that lasts a lifetime. One of the most powerful tools the Stoics left us is the practice of self-reflection. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Each day acquire something that will fortify you against poverty, against death, indeed against other misfortunes as well." But how do we acquire this strength? By looking inward, by examining our thoughts, actions, and choices with honesty and clarity. Self-reflection isn't just about thinking back on your day. It's about holding up a mirror to your soul and asking, am I living in alignment with my values? Am I reinforcing toxic patterns, or am I breaking free from them? To put this into practice, try this simple exercise. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to journal. Write down the moments when you felt anger, frustration, or anxiety. Then ask yourself, were these reactions justified? Did they serve you, or did they pull you deeper into a cycle of negativity? Next, reflect on the times you felt calm, confident, or at peace. What choices led to those moments? By doing this, you're not just recounting your day, you're training yourself to spot the patterns that hold you back and the habits that move you forward. This kind of reflection doesn't have to be overwhelming. Start small. Even 5 minutes a day can make a world of difference. Over time, you'll begin to see the toxic cycles in your life more clearly. The ways you might overreact, the situations you avoid, the thoughts that spiral out of control. And once you see them, you can start to dismantle them piece by piece. So here's a question to carry with you. What toxic patterns might you uncover if you took just a few moments each day to reflect? What could change in your life if you made self-reflection a daily habit? Have you ever noticed how much energy it takes to hold onto something that no longer serves you? Whether it's a draining friendship, a habit you know isn't good for you, or even a belief that keeps you stuck in the same patterns, holding on can feel like carrying a weight that only gets heavier over time. Stoicism offers a powerful antidote to this struggle, the practice of letting go. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. What he's pointing to here is the profound liberation that comes when we release our attachments to what no longer serves us. Think about it this way: when you're trapped in a toxic cycle, whether it's a relationship, a job, or even a mindset, you're essentially giving your energy to something that doesn't align with your growth or well-being. Stoicism teaches us to examine these attachments with clear eyes. Ask yourself, is this person, habit, or belief helping me become the best version of myself, or is it holding me back? For example, imagine you have a friendship that's become more draining than uplifting. Every interaction leaves you feeling worse, yet you keep holding on out of loyalty or fear of being alone. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you choose to prioritize your peace and growth over the chaos of holding on. Now, take a moment to reflect. What's one thing in your life that you know deep down isn't serving you anymore? Maybe it's a habit you've outgrown, a belief that limits your potential, or even a relationship that's become more harmful than healthy. The act of letting go isn't about giving up, it's about creating space for what truly matters. When you release what no longer serves you, you open the door to new possibilities, healthier relationships, and a deeper sense of inner freedom. So, what's holding you back from taking that step today? Let's take a moment to reflect on how often we let excesses take over our lives, whether it's scrolling endlessly on social media, overindulging in comfort foods, or even overcommitting ourselves to the point of burnout. The Stoics had a powerful antidote to this, the virtue of temperance. Temperance in Stoic philosophy is about moderation and self-discipline. It's the practice of saying no to the things that pull us away from balance, even when they feel good in the moment. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This craving, this endless pursuit of more, can trap us in toxic cycles, leaving us feeling empty and out of control. So, how do we apply temperance in today's world? Let's take social media as an example. It's easy to lose hours scrolling, comparing our lives to others, or seeking validation through likes and comments. But temperance asks us to set boundaries. Maybe that means limiting your screen time to an hour a day, or turning off notifications during meals or family time. It's not about cutting out what brings joy entirely, but about finding a healthy balance. The same goes for habits like unhealthy eating. Instead of swinging between strict diets and overindulgence, temperance encourages us to enjoy food mindfully, savoring it without letting it dominate our choices. The beauty of temperance is that it's not about deprivation, it's about reclaiming your freedom. By practicing moderation, you're not letting external cravings dictate your actions. You're taking charge of your life one small, disciplined step at a time. So, here's a question to ponder. Where in your life do you feel the pull of excess? Is it in your habits, your relationships, or even your thoughts? Temperance starts with awareness. Once you identify those areas, you can begin to bring balance back step by step. So often, we find ourselves fighting against life instead of flowing with it. The Stoics understood this struggle deeply, and they offered a powerful antidote: acceptance. Not resignation, not defeat, but a clear-eyed acknowledgement of reality as it is. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it beautifully when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. In other words, life will throw challenges your way, things you can't control, but your power lies in how you respond. Acceptance is the first step toward reclaiming that power. Think about it this way. Imagine you've just lost your job. It's a tough situation, and your first instinct might be to resist it, to feel angry, betrayed, or even ashamed. But what if, instead of fighting that reality, you paused and accepted it? Not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing to see it clearly. From there, you can ask yourself, what's next? Maybe this is an opportunity to explore a new career path, to learn a new skill, or to spend more time with your family. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop wasting energy on what you can't change and start focusing on what you can. Now take a moment to reflect. What reality are you resisting in your own life? Is it a relationship that's not working, a dream that feels out of reach, or a situation that's beyond your control? How might accepting it, truly accepting it, help you move forward? When you stop fighting the waves and start learning to swim with them, you'll find that life becomes not easier but more manageable. And that's where true growth begins. Let's talk about one of the most powerful tools the Stoics used to build inner strength: voluntary discomfort. It might sound counterintuitive at first. Why would anyone willingly choose to endure hardship? But the Stoics believed that by embracing discomfort, even in small doses, we train ourselves to become more resilient and less dependent on external comforts. As Epictetus once said, difficulties are things that show what men are. In other words, hardships aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities to reveal and refine our character. So how does this work in practice? Let's say you decide to take a cold shower instead of a warm one. At first, it might feel unpleasant, maybe even unbearable. But as you stand under that cold water, you're not just enduring the discomfort, you're teaching your mind that you can handle it. You're proving to yourself that you don't need perfect conditions to be okay. Over time, these small acts of voluntary discomfort build a kind of mental muscle, preparing you to face life's bigger challenges with calm and confidence. Another example is fasting for a day. It's not about punishing yourself or denying your needs. It's about showing yourself that you can go without something you're used to, even something as basic as food. This practice helps you realize how much of your happiness is tied to external comforts and how much of it comes from within. Now, here's a question for you. What's one small discomfort you could introduce into your life to start building this resilience? Maybe it's waking up 10 minutes earlier than usual, walking instead of driving for short distances, or even just sitting with a difficult emotion instead of distracting yourself. The key is to start small and consistent. Over time, these tiny acts of courage will add up, making you stronger, more adaptable, and less shaken by life's inevitable ups and downs. One of the most profound ways Stoicism empowers us to break free from toxic cycles is by focusing on virtue, living in alignment with our true nature and highest values. The Stoics believed that virtue is not just a set of moral guidelines, but the very essence of a fulfilling life. Seneca once wrote, "The reward of virtue is virtue itself." In other words, the act of living virtuously brings its own peace and clarity, regardless of external outcomes. This idea is especially powerful when we're stuck in cycles of negativity, where our actions often feel disconnected from who we truly want to be. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're in a situation where lying might seem like the easiest way out, perhaps to avoid conflict or protect someone's feelings. But deep down, you know honesty is the right path, even if it's uncomfortable. Choosing honesty in that moment isn't just about doing the right thing. It's about aligning with your core values and breaking the cycle of deceit that might have kept you trapped in the past. Each time you act with integrity, you reinforce your commitment to virtue, and over time, these small choices add up, creating a life that feels more authentic and free. So, how can living virtuously help you break a toxic cycle? It starts with recognizing that every decision you make is an opportunity to act in alignment with your values. When you prioritize virtues like courage, wisdom, justice, and self-discipline, you begin to untangle yourself from harmful patterns. You're no longer reacting to external pressures or old habits. Instead, you're responding from a place of inner strength and clarity. This shift might not happen overnight, but each virtuous choice brings you closer to a life of freedom and purpose. Think about it. What's one area of your life where acting with greater virtue could help you break free from a cycle that's holding you back? Whether it's choosing patience over anger, generosity over selfishness, or courage over fear, every step toward virtue is a step toward reclaiming your power. The Stoics remind us that virtue isn't just about being good, it's about being free, and that freedom is the ultimate reward of breaking toxic cycles. Stoicism teaches us that much of life is beyond our control, but how we respond to it is entirely within our power. One of the most transformative tools the Stoics offer for reshaping our perspective is gratitude. It's not just about feeling thankful, it's about actively shifting our focus away from what we lack or what's troubling us, and instead directing our attention to what we already have. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These simple words remind us that joy isn't found in grand achievements or material wealth, but in the everyday moments we often overlook. Gratitude in Stoic practice isn't a passive emotion, it's a discipline. It's a way of training the mind to see the good, even in difficult circumstances. For example, keeping a gratitude journal is a practical exercise rooted in this philosophy. Each day, take a moment to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be monumental. It could be as simple as a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or even the ability to learn and grow from challenges. Over time, this practice helps rewire your brain to notice and appreciate the positives, even when life feels overwhelming. The beauty of gratitude is that it doesn't require anything external to work. It's entirely within your control. You don't need more money, more time, or more success to feel gratitude. You just need to pause and reflect. And in doing so, you reclaim your power to choose how you see the world. So take a moment now and ask yourself, what are 3 things you're grateful for today? Whether it's the support of loved ones, the beauty of nature, or the strength to face another day, These small acts of recognition can become the foundation of a more resilient and joyful mindset. Let's explore one of the most powerful tools in the Stoic toolkit, Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This practice isn't about dwelling on negativity or inviting pessimism into your life. Instead, it's a mental exercise designed to help you anticipate challenges so they lose their emotional grip when they arise. As Seneca once wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." By preparing for adversity, you're not giving it power, you're taking it away. Think of it like this. Imagine you're about to have a tough conversation with someone. Maybe it's a colleague, a friend, or a family member. Instead of avoiding the discomfort or letting anxiety build, you take a few moments to mentally rehearse the conversation. You consider what might go wrong, how the other person might react, and how you'll respond calmly and thoughtfully. By doing this, you're not just preparing for the worst-case scenario, you're also giving yourself the mental clarity to handle whatever happens with grace. Here's how you can apply this practice in your own life. Start by asking yourself, what challenge am I facing today that feels overwhelming or uncertain? Maybe it's a presentation at work, a difficult decision, or even a personal fear you've been avoiding. Take a moment to visualize the situation in detail. Picture the obstacles, the setbacks, even the emotions that might arise. Then ask yourself, how can I respond to this challenge in a way that aligns with my values and principles? By mentally preparing for the challenge, you're not just reducing its power over you, you're also building resilience and confidence in your ability to handle it. This isn't about expecting the worst, it's about being ready for anything. And when you approach life with this mindset, you'll find that even the most daunting challenges become opportunities for growth. So, what's one thing you can prepare for today to lessen its emotional hold on you? Take a moment to reflect on that and see how this simple yet profound practice can shift your perspective. Sometimes the most powerful tool we have isn't something we do, it's something we don't do. Silence and solitude are cornerstones of Stoic practice, offering a rare opportunity to step away from the noise of the world and reconnect with what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Think about that for a moment. In a world that constantly demands our attention, silence becomes a sanctuary, a place where we can hear our own thoughts clearly and untangle the chaos of our emotions. But why is this so important when it comes to breaking free from toxic cycles? Toxic patterns often thrive in the noise, the endless chatter of social media, the pressure to keep up with others, or even the constant internal dialogue that tells us we're not enough. Silence, on the other hand, creates space. It's like hitting the pause button on a chaotic movie, giving us a chance to step back and ask, what's really going on here? One practical way to embrace this is by spending time in nature. Picture this, you're walking through a quiet forest, the only sounds being the rustle of leaves and the occasional bird call. In that moment, you're not reacting to texts, emails, or the expectations of others. You're simply being. Nature has a way of grounding us, reminding us of our place in the world and helping us see things from a broader perspective. But if nature isn't accessible, even a few minutes of quiet meditation in a quiet room can work wonders. Close your eyes, focus on your breath, and let the external noise fade away. The beauty of silence and solitude is that they allow us to confront ourselves honestly. When we're not distracted by external stimuli, we can ask the hard questions. Why do I keep falling into the same patterns? What am I truly afraid of? What do I need to let go of? These moments of reflection can be uncomfortable, but they're also where growth begins. So here's a question to consider. How might silence and solitude help you break a toxic cycle? Could carving out even 10 minutes a day to sit in stillness away from the noise give you the clarity you need to move forward? Sometimes the answers we're searching for aren't found in action. They are found in the quiet spaces in between. Letting go of resentment is one of the most challenging yet transformative practices in Stoicism. Think about it. When you hold on to anger or bitterness, who does it really hurt? The answer is simple: you. Resentment is like carrying a heavy weight that only you can feel. It keeps you tied to the past, replaying old wounds and trapping you in a cycle of negativity. Stoicism, however, offers a way out. It teaches us that resentment doesn't change the past or punish the person who wronged you. Instead, it only poisons your own peace of mind. As Epictetus once said, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. When you let resentment control you, you give away your power, your ability to choose how you respond to life's challenges. So how do we break free? The Stoic approach is rooted in forgiveness, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness isn't about excusing harmful behavior or pretending it didn't happen. It's about releasing the emotional grip that resentment has on you. Picture this: someone close to you betrayed your trust. Maybe it was a friend who spread rumors or a colleague who took credit for your work. Holding onto that anger might feel justified, but what does it cost you? Your energy, your focus, your ability to move forward. Stoicism invites you to shift your perspective. Instead of dwelling on what they did, ask yourself, what can I control in this situation? You can't change their actions, but you can choose how you respond. Forgiveness is a choice, a radical act of reclaiming your freedom. Here's a question to reflect on: who do you need to forgive to free yourself from resentment? It might be someone who hurt you deeply, or it could even be yourself for past mistakes. The act of forgiveness doesn't mean you condone what happened. It simply means you're no longer willing to let it define your present or future. By letting go, you create space for growth, clarity, and a renewed sense of purpose. And that's the Stoic art of letting go, a practice that doesn't just break toxic cycles but sets you on a path toward true inner freedom. Let's take a moment to reflect on something profound yet often overlooked: the practice of memento mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you must die." At first glance, it might sound morbid, but for the Stoics, this concept was a powerful tool for clarity and focus. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." In other words, we often waste time chasing things that won't matter in the long run, while neglecting what truly gives life meaning. This isn't about dwelling on death. It's about using the awareness of mortality as a lens to prioritize what's important. Imagine standing at the end of your life, looking back. Would you regret not buying that luxury car or not spending more time with the people you love? The Stoics believed that by keeping death in mind, we can strip away the distractions and focus on what truly matters: relationships, character, and the legacy we leave behind. Here's a practical way to apply this. Next time you find yourself caught up in a petty argument or obsessing over something trivial, pause and ask yourself, will this matter in a year? In 10 years, at the end of my life, you'll often find the answer is no. This simple shift in perspective can help you let go of unnecessary stress and redirect your energy toward what truly enriches your life. So, here's a question to carry with you. How would you live today if you knew it was your last? Would you hold grudges, waste time on things that don't matter? Or would you choose to live with purpose, gratitude, and love? The Stoics remind us that life is fleeting, and that awareness can be the key to living fully, right here and now. One of the most powerful yet often overlooked aspects of Stoicism is its emphasis on community. While Stoicism teaches us to rely on our inner strength, it also recognizes that we are social beings who thrive in connection with others. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts and the company it keeps." This simple yet profound statement reminds us that the people we surround ourselves with have a significant influence on our mindset, values, and ultimately our actions. Think about it. If you're trying to break free from toxic cycles, whether they're patterns of negative thinking, unhealthy habits, or unproductive relationships, surrounding yourself with people who embody the virtues you aspire to can make all the difference. Stoicism doesn't encourage isolation. Instead, it calls for intentional relationships that uplift and inspire. These are the kinds of connections that help you stay grounded in wisdom, courage, and self-discipline qualities that Stoics hold in the highest regard. For example, joining a Stoic study group or a community of like-minded individuals can be transformative. These groups provide a space to share insights, challenge each other's perspectives, and hold one another accountable. Imagine sitting in a room or even a virtual space where everyone is committed to growth, self-reflection, and living a life of virtue. The energy of such a community can act as a powerful counterbalance to the negativity or chaos you might be trying to escape. But it's not just about formal groups. Reflect for a moment who in your life already helps you stay aligned with your values. Is it a friend who always seems to know the right thing to say when you're struggling? A family member who models resilience in the face of adversity? Or maybe a mentor who encourages you to see challenges as opportunities for growth? These relationships are invaluable because they remind you of what's possible when you live with intention and integrity. The Stoic approach to community isn't about seeking perfection in others or expecting them to solve your problems. It's about finding people who inspire you to be your best self, who challenge you to grow, and who remind you of the virtues you're striving to embody. In this way, the right community becomes a mirror, reflecting back the potential you sometimes struggle to see in yourself. The Stoic concept of amor fati, loving one's fate, might sound radical at first, especially when life feels unfair or overwhelming. But this ancient idea isn't about blindly accepting suffering or pretending everything is perfect. It's about shifting your perspective to see every moment, even the hardest ones, as an essential part of your journey. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's great teachers, once said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy." In other words, true peace comes not from controlling life but from embracing it exactly as it unfolds. Think about a time when something didn't go your way. Maybe you lost a job, a relationship ended, or you faced a health challenge. At first, these moments can feel like setbacks, events that derail your plans. But what if you could see them differently? What if, instead of resisting, you chose to ask, "What can I learn from this? How can this shape me into someone stronger, wiser, or more compassionate?" That's the heart of amor fati. It's not about denying pain, it's about finding meaning within it. For example, imagine losing a loved one. The grief is real and the pain doesn't disappear overnight. But through amor fati, you might begin to see their life as a gift that shaped you, their lessons as a legacy that continues to guide you. You don't have to celebrate the loss itself, but you can honor the love, the memories, and the ways they made you who you are. This shift doesn't erase the hurt, but it transforms it into something purposeful. So, how can you start practicing amor fati in your own life? Begin by reflecting on a current challenge or a past event that still weighs on you. Ask yourself, what can this teach me? How can this moment, even if it's difficult, contribute to my growth? When you start to see life's twists and turns as opportunities rather than obstacles, you'll find a deeper sense of peace and maybe even a little more joy in the journey. Consistency is the backbone of any meaningful change, and this is especially true when it comes to breaking toxic cycles. Stoicism teaches us that transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's built through small, deliberate actions repeated over time. As Seneca once said, every habit and capability is confirmed and grows in its corresponding actions, walking by walking and running by running. In other words, the power lies in the steady, daily effort, no matter how small it may seem. Take Stoic meditation, for example. This practice isn't about grand gestures or dramatic breakthroughs. It's about sitting quietly each day, reflecting on your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Even 5 minutes of this practice can help you gain clarity, identify patterns, and start untangling the toxic cycles that hold you back. The key is to show up day after day, even when it feels like you're not making progress. Over time, these small efforts compound, creating a foundation of strength and self-awareness that can carry you through life's challenges. So, what does this look like in practice? Let's say you're struggling with a toxic habit of reacting impulsively in stressful situations. Instead of trying to overhaul your behavior all at once, you might start by pausing for just 10 seconds before responding. That tiny pause gives you the space to choose a more thoughtful reaction. And if you commit to this small action every day, it becomes a habit, eventually reshaping how you handle stress altogether. Here's a question to reflect on. What's one small, consistent action you can start today to break a toxic cycle in your life? It doesn't have to be monumental, just something you can commit to doing daily, whether it's journaling, practicing gratitude, or simply taking a moment to breathe deeply. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress, and progress is built one small, steady step at a time. One of the most transformative qualities Stoicism invites us to cultivate is humility. It's not about diminishing your worth or shrinking yourself. It's about recognizing that no matter how much you know, there's always more to learn. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once wrote, "You can strip away many unnecessary troubles which lie wholly in your judgment. For you will make large room for yourself by embracing the whole universe in your thoughts and by contemplating eternity." At its core, humility is about seeing yourself as part of something greater, not as the center of it. It's a reminder that life is a continuous journey, and every experience, whether good or bad, holds a lesson if we're willing to listen. Think about a time when you made a mistake. Maybe it was at work, in a relationship, or even in how you treated yourself. Did you immediately own up to it, or did you try to justify or ignore it? Humility asks us to do the harder thing, to admit when we're wrong, to seek feedback, and to commit to doing better. For example, imagine you gave someone advice that ended up being unhelpful or even harmful. A humble response isn't to defend your intentions or shift blame. It's to acknowledge the impact, apologize sincerely, and ask how you can make amends. This kind of openness not only fosters growth but also strengthens trust and connection with others. So, where in your life could you practice more humility? Is there a situation where you've been resistant to feedback or unwilling to admit fault? Or perhaps there's an area where you feel so confident in your knowledge that you've stopped asking questions or considering other perspectives. Humility isn't about self-doubt, it's about self-awareness. It's the quiet strength that allows us to grow, adapt, and become better versions of ourselves. Take a moment to reflect on this. What's one small step you can take today to embrace a more humble mindset? Imagine for a moment that everything you hold dear, your relationships, your health, your career, were suddenly gone. How would you feel? What would you miss the most? This exercise, known as negative visualization, is one of the most powerful practices in Stoicism. It's not about dwelling on fear or pessimism, but about training your mind to truly value what you have right here and right now. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared? What he's pointing to is the profound truth that by imagining loss, we can free ourselves from the grip of dependency and deep. Our gratitude for the present. Let's take a practical example. Think about someone you love deeply, a partner, a family member, or a close friend. Now imagine your life without them. It's uncomfortable, even painful to consider, isn't it? But here's the gift in this exercise. When you return to the reality that they're still here, you'll likely feel a renewed sense of appreciation for their presence in your life. It's not about living in fear of loss, but about recognizing how much you value what you already have. This practice helps you see the ordinary as extraordinary, the mundane as miraculous. So here's a question to reflect on. What are you taking for granted right now? Is it your health, your home, or even the simple freedom to choose how you spend your time? By intentionally focusing on the possibility of losing these things, you're not inviting negativity into your life, you're cultivating a mindset of gratitude and resilience. Negative visualization isn't just a Stoic tool, it's a way of reconnecting with the richness of your life moment by moment. And when you practice this regularly, you'll find that your attachment to external outcomes softens, leaving you more grounded and at peace with whatever comes your way. Fear, it's one of the most universal human experiences, something we've all felt at some point. But what if I told you that fear doesn't have to control you? What if you could face it head-on and strip it of its power? This is where Stoicism offers a profound and practical approach. The Stoics believed that fear thrives when we focus on things outside our control, what others think, what might happen, or outcomes we can't guarantee. But when we shift our attention to what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, and our responses, fear begins to lose its grip. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet powerful idea reminds us that fear is often a product of our own perceptions. It's not the external event that paralyzes us, it's how we interpret it. By focusing on reason and clarity, we can confront fear with a calm and grounded mindset. Let's take a practical example: public speaking. For many, the thought of standing in front of a crowd is terrifying. The fear of judgment, of making a mistake, or of being misunderstood can feel overwhelming. But here's the Stoic approach. Instead of fixating on how the audience might react, something outside your control, focus on what you can control. Prepare thoroughly, practice your delivery, and remind yourself that your goal is to communicate clearly, not to please everyone. When you shift your focus to your own effort and intention, the fear of judgment starts to feel smaller. So here's a question to reflect on. What fear is holding you back right now? Is it the fear of failure, rejection, or uncertainty? And more importantly, how can you confront it by focusing on what's within your control? The Stoics teach us that fear isn't something to avoid, it's something to face with courage and reason. When you do, you'll find that fear isn't as invincible as it seems. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about how you wait. Stoicism teaches us that patience is a virtue, a way to endure life's challenges without losing hope or giving in to frustration. It's about understanding that some things take time, and that time itself can be a teacher. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest voices, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. What he's saying here is profound. The obstacles we face, the delays we experience, they're not roadblocks, they're part of the journey. They shape us, strengthen us, and prepare us for what comes next. Think about it in the context of your career. Maybe you've been working toward a promotion, a new job, or even a complete career shift, but it feels like nothing's happening. You're putting in the effort, but the results aren't showing up as quickly as you'd like. It's easy to feel discouraged, to question whether you're on the right path. But Stoicism reminds us that patience isn't passive. It's an active choice to trust the process, to keep moving forward even when progress feels invisible. It's about focusing on what you can control: your effort, your mindset, your daily actions, while letting go of what you can't, like timing or external outcomes. So where in your life do you need more patience? Is it in your relationships, your personal goals, or maybe even in how you see yourself? Take a moment to reflect on that. Because the truth is, breaking toxic cycles often requires us to slow down, to resist the urge for instant fixes, and to embrace the long game. Patience isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain, knowing that every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. And when you combine patience with persistence, you'll find that even the most stubborn cycles begin to shift. Let's talk about the power of mindful decision-making, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy that helps us break free from toxic cycles. The Stoics believed that impulsive actions often lead to regret, while deliberate choices pave the way for clarity and growth. As Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." This isn't just about anger, it's about pausing before we act, giving ourselves the space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Think about it. How often do we make decisions on autopilot, driven by habit, emotion, or external pressures? Maybe it's snapping at someone in frustration, overspending on something we don't need, or jumping into a situation without fully considering the consequences. These actions, even if small, can reinforce the very cycles we're trying to escape. Stoicism teaches us to slow down, to step back and ask ourselves, is this action aligned with my values? Is this choice serving my long-term well-being? Here's a practical example. Imagine you're about to make an online purchase. Instead of clicking buy immediately, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, do I truly need this? Will it add value to my life, or am I just seeking a temporary distraction? This simple act of reflection can help you avoid impulsive spending and align your actions with your deeper goals. Mindful decision-making isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about recognizing when you're being pulled by external forces or internal emotions and choosing to respond with intention. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can you make more mindful decisions today? Whether it's in your conversations, your habits, or your daily choices, what's one area where you can pause, reflect, and act with greater deliberation? Imagine waking up one day to find that everything you've worked so hard to achieve, your job title, your social status, even your material possessions, has vanished. How would you feel? Would you still feel fulfilled, or would you feel lost, as if a part of you was missing? This is the kind of question Stoicism invites us to confront. Stoic philosophy teaches us that true success isn't measured by external achievements, but by the strength of our character and the virtues we cultivate within ourselves. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In other words, the more we chase external validation, whether it's money, fame, or approval from others, the further we drift from the kind of success that truly matters. Stoicism reminds us that these external markers are fleeting, and they don't have the power to define who we are or how fulfilled we feel. Let's take a practical example. Think about someone who spends years climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize that the promotions and accolades don't bring the lasting happiness they expected. Instead, they find a deeper sense of fulfillment in the smaller, quieter moments, like mastering a new skill, helping a colleague grow, or simply becoming a more patient and compassionate person. That's the Stoic view of success. It's not about what you accumulate or achieve on the outside. It's about who you become on the inside. So here's a question to reflect on. What external success are you chasing right now? Is it a bigger paycheck, a fancier title, or maybe the approval of someone whose opinion you value? And more importantly, Do you think achieving that will bring you lasting happiness? Or is it possible that you're investing your energy in something that might not fulfill you in the long run? Stoicism doesn't tell us to abandon ambition or stop striving for goals. Instead, it asks us to shift our perspective, to focus less on the outcomes and more on the person we're becoming in the process. Because at the end of the day, the only success that truly lasts is the one that comes from within. Stoicism often gets misunderstood as a philosophy that promotes emotional detachment or indifference, but that couldn't be further from the truth. At its core, Stoicism teaches us to cultivate compassion not just for ourselves, but for others as well. In fact, one of the most powerful ways to break free from toxic cycles is by practicing empathy and understanding. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, once said, "What injures the hive injures the bee." This profound statement reminds us that we're all interconnected. When we harm others, we ultimately harm ourselves. And when we extend compassion, we heal not just those around us, but also our own inner turmoil. So, how does this play out in real life? Imagine someone has wronged you. Maybe a coworker took credit for your idea, or a friend said something hurtful in the heat of an argument. It's easy to let resentment build, to replay the moment in your mind and fuel the cycle of negativity. But Stoicism invites us to pause and consider a different path. Instead of reacting with anger, what if you chose to respond with kindness? This doesn't mean excusing their behavior or pretending it didn't hurt. It means recognizing that everyone, including the person who wronged you, is struggling with their own challenges. By showing compassion, you disrupt the cycle of conflict and create space for understanding and growth. Here's a practical step you can take today. The next time you feel wronged, try to see the situation from the other person's perspective. Ask yourself, what might they be going through that led to this behavior? This simple shift in mindset can transform how you respond, turning a potential argument into an opportunity for connection. And remember, practicing compassion doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It's about making small, intentional choices that align with your values. Now, let's bring this back to you. Think about your own life for a moment. How can you practice more compassion today? Maybe it's offering a kind word to someone who seems stressed, or forgiving a mistake instead of holding on to frustration. Every act of compassion, no matter how small, has the power to break toxic cycles and bring more peace into your life. What's one way you can start right now? At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a profound principle, the practice of living in accordance with nature. But what does that really mean? For the Stoics, it's about aligning our actions, thoughts, and desires with the natural order of the universe and our own true nature as rational beings. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once said, "Live according to nature and you will never be poor. Live according to opinion and you will never be rich." This isn't just about material wealth. It's about richness of spirit, about finding peace and fulfillment by living authentically, rather than chasing external validation or societal expectations. To live in accordance with nature is to recognize what's within our control and what isn't. It's about focusing on our own virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, while letting go of the things we can't change. For example, imagine you're caught in a traffic jam. You can't control the traffic, but you can control how you respond to it. Do you let frustration take over, or do you use that time to reflect, breathe, and accept the situation as it is? That's living in harmony with nature, accepting the flow of life rather than resisting it. Another way to embody this principle is by simplifying your life. In a world that constantly demands more possessions, more achievements, more distractions, Stoicism invites us to pare down to what truly matters. Think about it, how much of what we stress over is actually essential? By letting go of excess, we create space for clarity and peace. It's not about deprivation, it's about focusing on what aligns with our true nature and brings genuine fulfillment. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you live more in accordance with your true nature? Is there an area of your life where you're resisting the natural flow, clinging to things that don't serve you? Or perhaps there's a habit or belief that's pulling you away from your authentic self. The Stoics remind us that when we align with nature, we find a deeper sense of purpose and tranquility, not by changing the world around us, but by changing how we engage with it. Stoicism teaches us that growth doesn't end when we reach a certain age or milestone. In fact, the Stoics believed that wisdom is not a destination but a lifelong journey. As Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself," and self-mastery begins with a commitment to continuous learning. It's about recognizing that there's always more to understand, more to improve, and more ways to adapt, especially when we're trying to break free from toxic cycles. Think about it. Toxic patterns often thrive because we get stuck in the same mental loops, repeating the same behaviors without questioning them. But when we embrace lifelong learning, we open ourselves to new perspectives and tools that can help us see those patterns clearly and finally step away from them. For the Stoics, seeking wisdom wasn't just about reading books or attending lectures. It was about actively applying what they learned to their lives day after day. A practical way to start is by engaging with Stoic texts. Books like Marcus Aurelius' Meditations or Seneca's Letters from a Stoic aren't just historical artifacts, they're practical guides filled with timeless advice. Even setting aside just 10 minutes a day to reflect on a passage can spark new insights. Or, if you prefer a more interactive approach, consider attending workshops or joining discussions where you can explore Stoic principles with others. The key is to stay curious and open, always asking, "What can I learn today that will help me grow?" Now, here's a question for you. What new knowledge could you seek to help break a toxic cycle in your life? Maybe it's a book you've been meaning to read, a conversation you've been avoiding, or even a new skill that could help you approach challenges differently. Whatever it is, remember that every step you take toward learning is a step toward greater freedom. So, let's bring it all together. Throughout this video, we've explored some of the most powerful Stoic practices to help you break free from toxic cycles, habits, relationships, or thought patterns that keep you stuck. Cognitive reframing, for example, teaches us to question and reshape our automatic thoughts, turning negative narratives into opportunities for growth. Emotional detachment reminds us to observe our feelings without letting them dictate our actions, creating space for clarity and calm. And focusing on what's within our control helps us redirect our energy toward what truly matters, rather than wasting it on things we can't change. But here's the thing, breaking these cycles isn't a one-time event. It's a gradual process, a daily practice. It's about showing up consistently, even when it feels difficult, and trusting that small, intentional steps add up over time. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the heart of Stoicism. Recognizing that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always choose how we respond. Now, I want to turn it over to you. How can you start applying these principles in your own life? Maybe it's taking a moment to pause and reframe a negative thought when it arises. Or perhaps it's practicing emotional detachment in a situation where you'd normally feel overwhelmed. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more insights on how Stoicism can help you live a calmer, more intentional life. Thanks for joining me on this journey, and remember, the power to transform your challenges starts with your mind. See you in the next